My friends, words can inspire, but actions truly define who we are. History remembers not only what people said, but more importantly, what they did. Think about it. Leaders, reformers, scientists, and visionaries, they didn't just talk about change, they lived it. Their actions became the loudest voice, echoing through generation. In our own lives, it is easy to make promises, to declare big goals, and to talk about our dreams. But unless those words are translated into consistent action, they remain empty. A seed does not announce that it will grow into a tree. It silently breaks the soil and stretches toward the sun. That is the language of action. True greatness lies not in speaking more, but in doing more. A kind gesture, a step of courage, a sacrifice for others, or even the discipline of daily hard work, these silent acts speak volumes. People may forget what we say, but they will always remember how we acted. So, let's not chase recognition or applause. Let us focus on what we do when no one is watching, because that is where true character is built. If we wish to inspire, if we wish to make a difference, let our lives become a message, spoken not through words, but through powerful actions. When we think about the power of words, we often remember how deeply a sentence or a speech can inspire us. A few words of encouragement can lift us when we are down. A powerful phrase can ignite hope in our hearts. Yet as strong as words may be, they remain incomplete unless they are supported by action. Words are like a seed, but action is the soil, the water, and the sunlight that make the seed grow into something real. Without action, words lose their strength. They remain like clouds with no rain, promising but never delivering. Consider this. If someone says, "I care about you," but never shows kindness, never offers time, or never makes a sacrifice, do those words carry meaning? They may sound pleasant in the moment, but over time they fade into emptiness. On the other hand, when someone may not even say much, but quietly stands by us in difficult times, their silent support speaks louder than any beautifully crafted sentence ever could. Actions are the true evidence of love, compassion, and sincerity. Life gives us countless opportunities to turn our words into deeds. How often do we hear people say, "I want to help others. I want to do something meaningful. I want to achieve greatness." These statements are easy to make because words require little effort. But those who rise above the ordinary are the ones who do not just talk, they act. They take the difficult steps, they endure the struggles, and they push themselves beyond comfort. And in doing so, they allow their lives to become a living example of their values. Think of the great achievers in history. They did not simply make promises or give speeches. They moved forward with determination, even when no one believed in them. A scientist spends years in a lab, often in failure, but continues experimenting until discovery happens. A leader works tirelessly, making sacrifices not for their own benefit, but for the greater good. Their achievements became the loudest speeches. People remember them not because of the words they uttered, but because of the lives they lived. The truth is, actions reach where words cannot. Words may touch the ears, but actions touch the heart. A child may not fully understand the lectures given by a parent, but they observe every act. If they see patience, honesty, and integrity in action, those qualities sink deeper than any words could explain. In the same way, in our personal relationships and in our professional lives, the way we act becomes our identity. People may forget what we said in a conversation years ago, but they will always remember how we treated them, how we behaved, how we lived. And so, we must remind ourselves daily. Before speaking, let us ask, are we living what we are saying? Are our words supported by the steps we take? Because only when action and speech are aligned, does life become powerful and authentic. It is not the loudest speaker who is remembered, but the one whose life itself becomes a speech, written not in ink, but in deeds. When we look back at history, it becomes clear that the world has always celebrated those who acted with courage, conviction, and determination. Speeches may inspire for a moment, but deeds create a legacy that endures for centuries. History is not written by the ones who only talked about what they wanted to do. It is written by those who rolled up their sleeves and did it. Words are fragile, they can fade, they can be forgotten, they can be forgotten, they can be twisted. But actions stand firm, becoming undeniable proof of who we are and what we value. Think of the inventors, explorers, and reformers we admire today. Did they become great because of their fine speeches? Or did they earn their place in history because they risked everything to do what others only imagined? An inventor spends years experimenting in solitude, failing countless times, yet persisting until success is born. An explorer ventures into the unknown, not with grand words, but with steps that carve a path for others to follow. These are the stories that remain alive because actions built them, not mere promises. Even leaders who spoke powerfully are remembered not only for their words, but because their actions match their message. A speech may ignite the flame of hope, but without action, that flame soon dies out. Imagine if a leader spoke of justice, but lived unjustly. Would history still honor them? Of course not. Their words would have vanished into the air, like smoke carried by the wind. But when words are tied to action, when deeds breathe life into promises, they create movements that cannot be erased. We see this truth even in our personal lives. If a friend constantly says, "I will be there for you," but never shows up when you truly need them, do their words mean anything? Yet another friend may never speak much, but their presence in your most difficult moments becomes unforgettable. History is just a larger version of this principle. Humanity does not record who talked the most. It remembers who acted the most. There is a saying that statues are not built for those who made the loudest speeches, but for those who made the greatest sacrifices. Why? Because action is remembered longer than rhetoric. A speech might be quoted, but a sacrifice is honored. Words may decorate the pages of books, but actions shape the direction of the future. This is why those who achieve greatness often speak less about what they will do and focus more on actually doing it. Each of us has the same opportunity. We may not all be written about in history books, but we will be remembered in the history of those around us. Our families, our friends, our communities will remember us not for the things we said, but for the lives we lived. They will recall the moments when we chose honesty over convenience, kindness over selfishness, perseverance over surrender. These deeds, however small, become our legacy. So, as we live each day, let us ask ourselves, when people look back at us, what will they remember? Our words may fade, but our actions will carve our place in their memories. History, whether grand or personal, has always favored deeds over speeches, and that will never change. Promises are easy to make. They slip off the tongue with little effort, often made in moments of excitement, emotion, or even guilt. We promise to be there for people, to change ourselves, to achieve big goals, to start new habits, to quit bad ones. And in that moment, our words may sound convincing, both to others and to ourselves. But the true test of any promise begins not when it is spoken, but in the days, weeks, and years that follow. Without follow-through, a promise is nothing more than a string of empty syllables, beautiful to hear, but meaningless in reality. Think about how many times people around us promise something but fail to fulfill it. A parent might promise their child time, but remain too busy with work. A friend might promise to help, but vanish when they're most needed. Leaders may promise fairness, justice, or progress, but deliver none of it. What happens then? Trust begins to erode. Faith in words begins to disappear. And slowly, those promises become a source of disappointment instead of hope. It's not the words that warned, it's the absence of action behind them. On the other hand, when someone makes a promise and fulfills it, no matter how small, it creates deep trust. Even if the promise is as simple as showing up on time, completing a task, or keeping a secret, the act of following through builds reliability. People begin to know that your word has weight, that when you speak, it is not mere noise, it is a commitment backed by action. And that is rare in a world where promises are often made carelessly. Great achievers understand this truth well. They do not make promises lightly, and when they do, they move mountains to keep them. The strength lies not in saying, "I will do this," but in actually doing it. A promise fulfilled becomes a building block of trust. respect, and legacy. And when promises are repeatedly kept, they turn into credibility, which is one of the most powerful currencies in human relationships. It is also important to recognize that breaking a promise does not just hurt others, it weakens us too. Every time we promise ourselves something and fail to follow through, we chip away at our own self-confidence. For example, when we promise to wake up early to exercise, to study, or to change a habit, but we break that promise, we begin to doubt our own word. Soon, our inner voice no longer trusts us. And when we stop trusting ourselves, it becomes harder to move forward with conviction. This is why the greatest promises are often silent ones, made in the heart and fulfilled through action. You don't always need to declare loudly what you will do. Instead, do it quietly and let the results speak. Silence combined with consistency carries far more strength than loud promises without action. People remember deeds and not declarations. In truth, a promise is a sacred bond. It's not simply about saying, I will, but about showing I did. When words and actions align, they form a bridge of trust that can carry relationships, careers, and even nations forward. But when words and actions separate, that bridge collapses. The world is full of people who say much but do little. Be the rare person whose promises shine not because of the sound they make, but because of the reality they create. Nature has always been the greatest teacher, though it never utters a single word. If we pause for a moment and observe carefully, we realize that every part of nature is communicating with us in silence, teaching us values and wisdom that no book or lecture could explain as deeply. A tree does not give long speeches about generosity, yet it offers its fruits, shade, and oxygen without asking for anything in return. A river does not announce its resilience, yet it continues to flow over rocks, around obstacles, finding its way to the ocean. These silent lessons are profound reminders that actions, not words, are the true expressions of strength, growth, and greatness. Take the example of a seed. When it is buried in the dark soil, it makes no noise. No one hears it struggle as it breaks open, stretches its tiny roots downward, and pushes its fragile stem upward against the weight of the earth. It does not declare, I will become a tree. Yet with patience and persistence, it grows silently, and one day it stands tall, offering fruit, shade, and life to countless beings. The seed teaches us that greatness does not need to be announced. It simply unfolds through consistent action. Consider the sun. Every morning it rises in the east, spreading light and warmth across the world. It does not demand recognition, nor does it take pride in the fact that without its rays, life cannot survive. It simply does what it is meant to do, day after day, without fail. The lesson here is that true greatness is steady, dependable, and does not require applause. Just as the sun shines regardless of praise, we too can live with purpose and consistency, letting our actions illuminate the lives of others. The mountains too are powerful teachers. They stand tall, unshaken by storms, rain, or snow. Their silence speaks of strength, stability, and patience. They remind us that in life, challenges will come like strong winds, but if our foundation is firm, we can endure. Mountains never boast about their height or their beauty, yet people travel across the world just to see them. Their quiet presence inspires awe. Similarly, our lives can inspire others not through noise, but through the calm strength of our actions. Even the river has a lesson. It does not stop when it encounters a rock. It flows around it, over it, or wears it down slowly over time. Without words, it teaches us resilience and adaptability. Life too will place obstacles in our path, but like the river, if we keep moving forward, we will eventually reach our destination. The river doesn't promise where it will go. It simply moves, and its actions carve valleys and nourish lands along the way. Nature constantly reminds us that action speaks louder than noise. Flowers bloom without announcement, yet their fragrance spreads far and wide. Stars shine silently in the night sky, guiding travelers and inspiring dreamers without asking for recognition. In all these examples, nature is teaching us that the most profound impact is made not by speaking, but by being. If we pay attention, we will see that every element of nature is living proof that greatness is quiet but powerful. The seed, the tree, the sun, the mountains, the river, all remind us that the world does not need our declarations as much as it needs our demonstrations. Our demonstration. Nature shows us that silence can be more eloquent than words when it is filled with purposeful action. Sometimes the most powerful inspiration comes not from speeches delivered to thousands, but from quiet acts that may have seemed small at the time. Silent actions carry a unique strength. They do not demand attention, yet they influence hearts and minds in ways that words cannot. When someone chooses kindness, discipline, or courage without announcing it, their life itself becomes a message. These silent acts ripple across time, often inspiring people far beyond what the doer could have ever imagined. Think about a teacher who patiently gives extra time to struggling students, not because anyone is watching, but because of genuine care. They may never stand on a stage or deliver a grand speech, but their silent dedication shapes the future of countless lives. Many of us can look back and remember someone who believed in us when we doubted ourselves. They may not have said much, but their consistent support silently taught us the value of persistence, love, and faith. Their action became a seed of inspiration that continues to grow within us. History itself is filled with such examples. A reformer who sacrifices comfort for justice may not always make fiery declarations, but their steady choices transform society. A scientist working tirelessly in a small lab may not speak of ambition, yet their discoveries change the world. Their actions inspire generations to dream bigger, to work harder, to believe that change is possible. They remind us that influence does not always come from standing in the spotlight. It often comes from living with integrity in the shadows. Even within families, silent actions leave the deepest impressions. A parent who wakes up early to provide for the household, who silently endures struggles to give children a better life, may not always express their sacrifices in words, yet those sacrifices speak louder than anything else. Years later, the children, now grown, realize the depth of those unspoken actions and often feel inspired to carry the same values forward. In this way, silent actions echo across generations, shaping not only individuals but entire family lineages. The beauty of silent actions lies in their authenticity. Words can sometimes be performed to gain approval, but actions done quietly without seeking recognition carry purity. They are not meant to impress, they are meant to serve, to uplift, to create real change. And it is precisely this purity that makes them so powerful. When people witness quiet strength, they see sincerity, and sincerity inspires. Consider also that silent actions create stories that live beyond a lifetime. A small act of kindness done today, a meal shared with someone in need, a moment of listening to someone in pain, a hand extended to help, may not seem world-changing at the moment, but the one who receives it may carry that kindness forward, offering the same to others. One silent action can begin a chain reaction of good, passed from person to person, generation to generation. Long after words are forgotten, the action continues to live. In truth, silent actions are like seeds scattered in the soil of time. They may appear invisible at first, but they grow into trees whose branches provide shade and shelter to people we may never meet. The influence of a sincere deed is not limited to the present. It becomes a gift for the future. Great achievers understand this. They know that true impact does not always come from what they declare, but from how they live. Their silent actions, whether kindness, service, or resilience, become guiding lights for generations yet to come. It is easy to look virtuous when eyes are upon us. When people are watching, we are careful with our words, cautious with our behavior, and mindful of our image. But the true measure of character is not how we act when the crowd applauds. It is how we act in the silence of solitude, when there is no one to impress, no one to judge, and no one to praise. What we choose to do in those unseen moments reveals who we truly are. Imagine someone who speaks often about honesty but cheats when no one is looking. Or someone who appears kind in public yet is harsh and selfish behind closed doors. Outwardly, they may maintain a reputation, but inwardly, their actions betray them. Character is not the mask we wear in society. It is the essence of who we are in private. When no one is there to witness our choices, our actions still matter because they shape us from within. Think about a student who studies diligently even when no teacher is around to check on them. They are not motivated by fear of punishment or desire for praise, but by an inner commitment to growth. That is character. Or a worker who gives their best effort even when the boss is absent. They are not performing for recognition, but out of integrity. Such quiet commitment may go unnoticed at first, but over time it builds trust, reliability, and respect. There is something deeply powerful about those who live consistently, both in public and in private, and their lives are not divided between two faces. Whether they are seen or unseen, they remain true to their values. This consistency creates inner peace because they do not carry the burden of pretense. And though others may not witness their private sacrifices, life has a way of reflecting back the authenticity of their character. Great achievers often lived lives where their unseen discipline made all the difference. Athletes who woke up at dawn to train while the world slept, inventors who spent lonely nights experimenting, writers who quietly filled pages in obscurity, all of them revealed their character not on the stage, but in the quiet preparation when no one cared. Later, when success arrived, people admired the outcome, but it was their hidden actions that built the foundation. Even in morality, the same truth applies. Giving to someone in need is admirable, but giving without announcing it is purer. Arcade was resisting temptation when no one would know otherwise reveals deeper strength. Acts of integrity performed in silence carry a weight that no applause can match. They show that goodness is not a performance, but a way of being. And the most fascinating thing is this: what we do in private eventually shapes who we become in public. A person who cuts corners in secret will eventually reveal their carelessness. A person who cultivates discipline alone will eventually shine with excellence. Shine with excellence. Character cannot be hidden forever. It seeps into our words, our decisions, and our destiny. Therefore, life constantly asks us, who are you when no one is watching? The answer lies not in the promises we make or the image we portray, but in the quiet choices we make in solitude. Those choices, though unseen, build the invisible pillars of our character. And one day when the world sees us, they will see not the mask, but the reality we have built through our private actions. Greatness is not built in a single day, nor is it the result of one extraordinary act. It is the product of small, consistent steps taken over time. Consistency is the quiet force that shapes destinies. Anyone can start with excitement. Anyone can speak passionately about dreams, but only those who persist daily, even when the excitement fades, truly achieve lasting success. Consistency may not be glamorous, but it is powerful. It transforms ordinary efforts into extraordinary outcomes. Think of water dripping on a rock. One drop seems insignificant, but when it falls over months and years, it carves into solid stone. The rock is hard, yet the gentle persistence of water reshapes it. That is the power of consistency. In our lives, small daily actions, whether studying, practicing, or working toward a goal, may appear insignificant at first. But with time, they shape our character, our skills, and our destiny. Consider an athlete. Training for one day does not bring strength or skill, but rising every morning, enduring pain, and practicing relentlessly builds mastery. The world may see the athlete's victory on the stage, but that victory was built by countless invisible hours of consistent training. Without that discipline, talent alone would remain unused potential. Consistency transforms talent into greatness. Even in relationships, consistency is the foundation of trust. A kind word spoken once may touch the heart, but kindness practiced daily builds love and security. A parent's consistent presence shapes a child's confidence more than occasional grand gestures. A friend who shows up repeatedly, without excuses, becomes more valuable than one who only appears once with dramatic help. Greatness in relationships is not about doing one big thing, but about being consistently reliable. The same applies to personal growth. Many people set goals with enthusiasm, learning a new skill, reading more, improving health. But when motivation fades, they abandon their efforts. Those who succeed are not always the most talented. They're simply the most consistent. Reading a few pages daily, exercising a little each morning, saving a small amount regularly. These actions, repeated faithfully, create remarkable results over time. Consistency multiplies effort into achievement. There is also a hidden strength in consistency. It creates resilience. When we repeat positive actions daily, they become habits, and habits sustain us even when motivation disappears. For example, a person who consistently practices gratitude develops a resilient mindset, able to see light even in darkness. Someone who consistently works with discipline no longer needs to rely on fleeting bursts of inspiration. Their routine carries them forward. Great achievers across history were not always the loudest or the most dramatic, but they were consistent. Inventors who spent decades refining their work, leaders who stood firm through trials, artists who created relentlessly even without recognition. They understood that greatness does not arrive suddenly. It is built brick by brick, day after day, choice after choice, after choice, after choice. The beauty of consistency is that it requires no special gift. Anyone can choose to be consistent. You do not need to be the most intelligent, the most skilled, or the most skilled, or the most privileged. You only need to keep showing up, to keep moving forward, to keep planting seeds even when the results are invisible. Over time, consistency turns those seeds into forests, those drops into rivers, those steps into journeys of greatness. There is a saying that children may not always listen to what their parents say, but they never fail to imitate what their parents do. This truth extends beyond childhood. It applies to every stage of life, every relationship, every circle of influence. We can lecture, advise, and instruct endlessly, but unless our actions reflect our words, our influence will be shallow. People are moved not by the instructions they hear, but by the examples they see. Think of a leader who constantly tells their team to work hard, but arrives late, cuts corners, and avoids responsibility. No matter how inspiring their words sound, their actions will overshadow their speech. The team may pretend to listen, but deep down they will follow what they observe, not what they are told. On the other hand, a leader who quietly demonstrates dedication, discipline, and integrity, even without long speeches, naturally inspires others to follow. Example has a silent authority that words can never match. This principle is deeply visible in families. A parent can remind a child to be polite, honest, or kind, but if the child witnesses rudeness, dishonesty, or cruelty at home, no lecture will matter. The lecture will matter. Children absorb what they see more than what they hear. And when they grow, they carry those examples into their own lives. Influence flows from the silent model set before them. Words may guide for a moment, but actions mold for a lifetime. History too provides countless reminders. Reformers, thinkers, and saints were not followed because of eloquence alone. Their lives embodied the values they spoke of. When people saw simplicity, humility, sacrifice, and courage lived out, they were compelled to follow. It wasn't their instructions that created movements, but their example that awakened hearts. Influence born of example spreads deeper and lasts longer because it appeals not just to the mind, but to the conscience. Even in friendship, example outweighs instruction. One of the most powerful truths of life is that genuine achievements never need to be advertised. They carry their own voice, louder and stronger than any announcement we could ever make. When real success is attained, it does not require noise, justification, or explanation. The results themselves become the testimony. Just as a lamp does not declare, "I give light," yet its glow is undeniable, so too true achievements silently illuminate the world around us. Think of a farmer who works silently through the seasons. He does not constantly remind the village of his effort, nor does he boast about his sweat and labor. But when the harvest arrives, golden fields speak on his behalf. No words are required because the outcome is visible to all. Similarly, in our lives, if we remain focused on effort and discipline, the achievements that follow will speak with more authority than any self-promotion ever could. In today's world, many feel the urge to constantly announce what they are doing. posting every step, sharing every small progress, seeking recognition even before the result. Yet, history reminds us that the greatest achievers often worked in silence. They were too busy creating, too busy building, too busy striving to stop and advertise themselves. And when their achievements finally emerged, they were undeniable. The world had to recognize them, not because they demanded it, but because their work commanded it. Achievements also carry credibility that words never can. A person may claim to be skilled, but when they demonstrate mastery through results, there is no room for doubt. Someone may say they are hardworking, but their achievements prove it more convincingly than the declaration. Words can be questioned, but outcomes are difficult to argue against. When you succeed, you don't need to convince people, they see it for themselves. Consider an athlete who quietly trains, refusing to waste time boasting. On the day of competition, their performance speaks volumes. Or a student who studies consistently without announcing their struggles, but when results are declared, the success requires no explanation. Achievements act as a voice that others cannot ignore. They are the language of proof, the evidence that cannot be silenced. This principle also shapes respect. People may applaud loud words for a moment, but their admiration often fades. True and lasting respect is given to those whose achievements stand tall even in silence. The inventor is remembered not for proclaiming brilliance, but for creating something that transformed lives. The leader is honored not for making promises, but for delivering change. Achievements leave an imprint that words alone never could. Another beauty of genuine achievement is its humility. Greatness does not need to shout. A tree does not declare its fruit, yet people flock to it. A river does not announce its flow, yet its waters nourish fields and sustain life. True success carries the same humility. It serves, it inspires, and it lasts all without seeking attention. Called without seeking attention. So if we wish a mark, our focus should not be on speaking about what we will do, but on doing it. Achievements, once realized, will become our voice. They will tell our story to the world more powerfully than any words could. And long after words are forgotten, our achievements will remain as living proof of our effort, discipline, and determination. Every human life whispers something into the world. Some lives whisper only about personal gain, comfort, or ambition, but others speak a language that echoes long after the person is gone, the language of service and purpose. When we live not only for ourselves but for others, when our actions are rooted in contribution, we create a legacy that no wealth, title, or speech could ever match. True greatness is not measured by how much we accumulate, but by how much we give. Think of those who spent their lives lifting others, teachers who shaped young minds, doctors who healed countless patients, reformers who fought for justice, or even ordinary individuals who quietly helped neighbors in need. Most of them never sought fame, yet their lives continue to inspire. Why? Because service leaves an impression on hearts, and hearts carry memories longer than history books do. Purpose too gives power to our actions. A person without purpose may drift, chasing temporary pleasures, but their life will fade quickly from memory. In contrast, one who lives with a clear sense of mission, whether it is to serve their family, community, or humanity, leaves behind a story that continues to inspire. The force of purpose is such that even small actions become meaningful when tied to something greater. Sharing a meal, listening to someone in pain, mentoring a young soul, when done with purpose, these simple deeds grow into timeless messages of love and compassion. Service also carries humility. The sun does not demand thanks for giving light, nor does a tree insist on recognition for its fruit. They simply give because giving is their nature. Likewise, when our actions flow from service, we don't need to seek applause. The impact itself becomes our reward. Ironically, such humility often inspires more than loud declarations because people sense the sincerity behind selfless action. Consider a parent who sacrifices dreams to give their children opportunities. Consider a volunteer who spends hours helping the less fortunate without expecting reward. Consider a leader who uses power not for personal gain, but to uplift society. These individuals may not always be remembered in history books, but their influence weaves itself quietly into countless lives. They become part of the unseen fabric that holds humanity together. And often their legacy endures far longer than that of those who lived only for themselves. Oh, the truth is life is short. But service stretches it beyond our years. Money, possessions, and fame vanish, but the impact of a purposeful life continues to ripple across generations. A kind word we spoke, a hand we extended, a sacrifice we made, all of it becomes part of someone else's memory, inspiration, or strength. In this way, our life becomes a message written not in ink, but in the hearts of others. When our days are over, people may not remember every word we said, but they will remember how we lived. Did we give? Did we serve? Did we live with purpose? If the answer is yes, then our actions will continue to speak long after our voice is silent. That is the loudest legacy any person can hope to leave behind. A life of service and purpose that continues to inspire generations yet to come.